Reduce child poverty. This is poverty levels, where poverty is defined as less than 60% median income, so it's a relative measure. To the left, the Nordic countries, Denmark, 9.5% poverty, Finland, Iceland, and France is up there at about 17%. The UK 17.7%, the UK 19%, the United States, poor country that it is, 29% of children growing up in poverty, just below Mexico. This is a political decision. You want to improve early child development and education in your country, reduce child poverty. The United States has chosen to tolerate child poverty. 29% of children in child poverty. This is the real obscenity, not what the president does with porn actresses. The obscenity is 29% of child poverty and not doing anything about it. We have in our hands the policy levers to improve early child development and education. And it's not in the health minister's hands, it's in the finance minister's hands. And you can see throughout Latin America how this works. The solid line is the percent of children enrolled in preschool. Cuba, nearly 100% of children aged 3 to 5 are enrolled in preschool. Costa Rica, Chile, high proportions. At the other end, Paraguay, Dominican Republic, Colombia, low proportions. The dotted line are reading scores in the 6th grade. The higher the proportion of children enrolled in preschool, the better the reading scores in 6th grade. Now, these same countries, which countries have the longest life expectancy? Cuba, Costa Rica, Chile. Which have the shortest? Paraguay, Dominican Republic, and Colombia. That's not proof of causation, but it's highly suggestive of a life course approach. Improve early child development, improve education, and you have longer, healthier lives. In fact, life expectancy in Cuba, Costa Rica, and Chile is half a year longer than in the United States of America. And PISA scores, Program of International Student Assessment, looking at mathematics at age 15, by attendance at pre-primary. The higher the proportion of children attending pre-primary for a country, these American countries, the better the PISA scores at age 15. And that's true after controlling for social disadvantage, because the more advantaged children are more likely to go to preschool. Having enough money is quite good. The Bolsa Familia in Brazil, the conditional cash transfer program, gives money to poor families, to women from poor families. And what it shows is that in families that participated in Bolsa Familia, under 5 mortality drops, but also girls remain in school. It actually, dealing with the poverty problems of families, helps girls remain in school. And I want to put this in context before I stop, of what's happening to inequalities in countries. These from OECD. It's the share of wealth inequality enjoyed by the top, the share of total wealth enjoyed by the top 1%. And you can see these very high figures in the US, relatively low figures in Japan, Italy, at the other end. Now that matters because of social mobility. Slightly complicated, so let me explain it. This is looking at parents who were in the bottom quartile of earnings. So these are people who had parents in the bottom quartile of earnings. Look first at the left-hand end, Denmark. So what you find is that people who themselves were in the bottom quartile of earnings, about 24% had parents who were in the fathers who were in the bottom quartile, and people who were in the top quartile, about the same number. Having a father of low income is no barrier to being high income yourself in Denmark. Look at the other end at the US. If your father was in the bottom quartile, you have very little chance of being in the top quartile of income. You're stuck down the bottom. Very little social mobility. Now, how does this work? Education is a key part of it. What we see in general, the higher the Gini index, so the Gini index is a measure of income inequality, the higher the inequality, the less social mobility. So at the left-hand end, the income of children bears no relationship to the income of parents. At the right-hand end, the income of children strongly resembles the income of parents. So the higher the income inequality, to put it in slightly different terms, you've got a ladder. The greater the distance between the rungs of the ladder, the more difficult it is to get from one rung to the next. So income inequality damages social mobility, and the way it does it, in large part, is through education. This is again from the OECD. It's the likelihood, the triangles are the likelihood of having tertiary education if neither parent had tertiary education. So in Finland, 35% of people had tertiary education despite the fact that neither of their parents had tertiary education. I'm not picking on the US, but in the United States, fewer than 10% of people achieved tertiary education if neither parent had tertiary education. So education is a key part of social mobility. And if you've got more education and higher earnings and a better job, you have better health. Education is playing a key role here. I can't help but say this before I stop. It's come to your attention that some of our politicians, not all of them, some of our politicians don't tell the truth, and that facts no longer have the currency that we once thought they should have. Those of us who are concerned, a chair in a UNESCO chair, this august institution, is based on evidence. And my message is we need evidence-based policy presented in a spirit of social justice. On the cover of the report of the Commission on Social Determinants of Health, we said, social injustice is killing on a grand scale. And I'm going to do the unpardonable and finish by quoting myself, that we said in our PAHO Commission report 2 weeks ago, at the heart of the Commission's purpose is ensuring the right of all people in the Americas to lead lives of dignity and enjoy the highest attainable standard of health. We call on all governments to act, and early child development and education are absolutely key in this endeavor. Thank you.